The ultimate defense form used by the Master, the ultimate attack form used by the Apprentice. Obi-Wan Kenobi and Anakin Skywalker's lightsaber forms were the perfect fit for both their personalities individually, but together, it made them a truly unstoppable force. Greetings Acolytes, and welcome back to the Archives. On this channel, we like to frequently talk about the expertise shown by Kenobi and Anakin when it comes to their individual forms. No other Jedi in the Order at the time had actually mastered Surisu and Gem-So the way that these two Jedi did, and we've spoken before about how they were each a distinct cut above the usual Jedi when it came to dueling. However, what we wanted to do was open a holocron and explore today was how they became virtually unstoppable when they combined their forces and used their forms in tandem with one another. But not just when they doubled up in a duel, but also on the open battlefield during the Clone War. As Jedi Generals, they had some of the highest success rates of any platoon at the time, and when the 501st and the 212th came together, those rates only skyrocketed. So let's go ahead and dive into it, and the masterful strategy of Skywalker and Kenobi when they fought as one. What we often give spotlight to when talking about their forms is how well each of them mastered their own, but what is overlooked when it came to their teamwork is how well they knew each other. Since Kenobi and Skywalker constantly drilled against one another, they were each very well versed with the ins and outs of each other's forms as well as their own. Anakin was fully aware of the defensive capabilities utilized by Surisu, which was how Darth Vader was eventually able to smoothly integrate some of its sequences into his own style. And on the flip side, Kenobi was familiar with the sheer brute power of Gem-So, and how Anakin's insane force reserves allowed him to utilize its raw strength for a longer period of time. Obi-Wan using a more energy conservative style like Form 3 allowed him to keep up with Anakin's seemingly infinite well of stamina. And of course, that stamina is what kept Anakin fighting closely alongside Kenobi, despite Gem-So being famously demanding on one's energy. With them both being able to keep up with one another, this kept one from getting tired out too soon, which allowed them to stay energized throughout the entire battle. Adding on to this, they both knew Ataru footwork very well and integrated Form 4 into both of their styles. Using Ataru footwork, they suddenly gained the ability to cross large gaps in a short amount of time, closing the distance between themselves and their enemies. This also unlocks a completely new range of movement for the Jedi, with the acrobatics of Ataru allowing them to make full use of their environment. But the hidden advantage of this is their ability to constantly stay in sync with each other's movements. This is incredibly important, as if they're both moving at the same speed and aggressive vector, it can easily overwhelm an opponent who isn't ready for them. This also gives them the ability to do leapfrog combo attacks to keep their opponents off balance. This is executed perfectly against Dooku on Obadiah. And interestingly though, even though Dooku maintains control of this fight for the most part by taking advantage of their teamwork and completely disrupting it, at the very end, Obi-Wan and Anakin are able to force him back by using one of these techniques. But now it's time to talk about their blade work. The two of them have a distinct way of going into fights when they're together. They fight as though they are a single warrior using sword and shield tactics. Anakin is the sword, always attacking first and going on the offense to push an opponent into a retreat. And Kenobi is the shield, coming up behind Anakin to jump in wherever it looks like the opponent is about to attack. With his defensive sequences, Kenobi intercepts wherever the target is trying to go on the offensive, and Kenobi uses this moment to create openings in their guard for Anakin to follow up an attack. They continue going back and forth like this, and they very rarely, if ever, attack simultaneously. Doing so could possibly leave them open for tricks. By engaging one at a time, rapidly switching between who is doing what, this leaves the other one free to watch their partner's back. If Anakin is attacking, he is likely zoned in on his target, leaving Kenobi with the ability to watch out for any ambushes, sudden force attacks, or to intercept flanking maneuvers. If Obi-Wan is keeping the target busy by occupying their blade, Anakin prowls around like a lion waiting for the opening to pounce and dismantle them. If we watch the way the two of them fight Dooku on the Invisible Hand, or the way they engage with Ventress in the Clone Wars, there's sometimes a moment when Obi-Wan will be fighting the opponent and Anakin will hang back with his saber down casually, analyzing his enemy for weaknesses. Obi-Wan, in contrast, always has his saber up at the ready in order to act at any moment to move for an attack. Anakin has his saber down, keeping his stance completely neutral, so when he explodes into an attack, the opponent will not know what angle it is coming from until the attack is in motion. We notice that unlike most Surisu wielders, Obi-Wan doesn't entirely stay on the defensive though. While he's not the main offensive force like Anakin is, he will still sometimes shift to an offensive position, and will openly attack, switching up their routine if just for but a moment. His knowledge of Ataru serves him very well when it comes to the attack, so Obi-Wan is more than capable of being the offensive powerhouse for just a moment, especially if Anakin has already come in and smashed down their enemy's defenses. What's extremely interesting though, is that their philosophies when working together also translate to how they command a battlefield. General Kenobi in command of the 212th Attack Battalion usually orders his troops to mount a defensive position, mounting a defensive offense. This is the way of making a more frontal assault, but without committing to a charge until the right moment. We typically see the 212th advancing from behind cover, moving up from their previous line of defense, and pushing against the opposing army until they manage to break the line. But of course, this is the best supplement with General Skywalker's command of the 501st, usually taking an unconventional flank route and creating that opening for the 212th to charge. This is how the two Jedi generals fought on Christophsis at the very beginning of the Clone Wars, and what they did on the bridge on Cato Neimoidia in Season 7. Not to mention, the two Jedi are always at the very helm of their platoons. Obi-Wan weaves a wall of defense, acting as a shield behind which the clones can fire. Anakin, on the other hand, is confident that Rex and the boys will know how to take good positioning, so that he will usually mount a forward assault, running ahead to take down the largest threats to his squad, such as tanks or walkers. When combining their skills on the battlefield, there were very few separatist leaders who were ever able to properly handle both of them at once. Obi-Wan's unwavering courage was perfectly supplemented with Anakin's unconventional audacity, with Kenobi being able to hold the line, whether in open battlefield or in a duel. It provided Anakin the ability to do what he does best: wanton destruction. They made perfect use of each other's strengths, and ironically, the things that caused them to disagree with one another in the past, whether it was Anakin's annoyance at Obi-Wan's conservatism, or Obi-Wan's irritation with Anakin's brashness, they learned to make work with one another, and to form an absolutely unstoppable duo, and one that we need to talk more about: their sheer skill and power on the battlefield. The two Jedi were easily one of the deciding factors of the entirety of the Clone War, with many battles that they were able to win together because of how perfectly they supplemented one another. This is why Obi-Wan Kenobi and Anakin Skywalker were the most famous Jedi of the Clone War, the heroes of the Republic. But what do you think of this, my friends? Had you ever caught notice of how the two of them choose to play on one another's strengths in battle? And what are your thoughts as a duo, Kenobi and Skywalker are nigh unbeatable? As always, my friends, thank you so much for visiting the channel and the archives today. As always, may the Force be with you, and I hope you're having a great one.